This morning on This Week in Jacksonville, a legend of a leader in Florida, former governor and former U.S. senator, reflecting on the changes in politics since he held office.
People weren't as partisan. There wasn't as much time devoted to trying to demonize your opponent.
Bob Graham, as he visited a local university, he also describes the biggest challenge ahead for his home state. First, more votes that matter in election 2016. Citizens sharing their opinions in South Carolina for Republicans and in Nevada for Democrats. A local panel of experts to analyze and discuss, all on This Week in Jacksonville. Our entire interview with Senator Bob Graham a little later in our show. What an honor to meet him this week. First, a Republican primary in South Carolina and Democrats in a caucus in the silver state of Nevada. So here are the numbers. Donald Trump, 32.5%, so that looks like 33 on the screen. And I tell you that because Senator Marco Rubio in second at 22.5, Senator Ted Cruz at 22.3, so he's third. So really just a difference of just more than 1,000 votes between second and third there. The next three see Governor Jeb Bush with 8%, Governor John Kasich with 8%, Dr. Ben Carson at 7%, all three separated by about 4,500 votes there. Results from Nevada's Democratic caucus, Hillary Clinton that is, wins by 6%. In raw numbers, that means by less than 650 votes. I understand those are from the county convention delegates and the voters there. It looks like Clinton will take 19 national delegates, with Sanders earning 15.
Some may have doubted us, but we never doubted each other. And this one's for you.
And in the heart of South Carolina,
I want to begin by thanking the people of South Carolina. This is a special state.
The two biggest names in the race for president pulled off two big wins. For the Republicans, that's Donald Trump, who has now claimed victory in the North and the South. And in South Carolina, he didn't just win. It's possible he could collect every delegate.
When you win, it's beautiful. And we are going to start winning for our country. We're going to start winning.
Hillary Clinton fought off a late surge from Bernie Sanders to claim victory in Nevada, and it's winning a state that she desperately needed.
No one can get this done alone, not even the President of the United States. It's got to be the mission of our entire nation.
The winners were only part of the story. South Carolina claimed a victim. Jeb Bush immediately suspended his campaign, and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz both spun the result in a way to make future voters believe that they are the candidate best prepared to take Trump on.
Right now, we are effectively tied for second place.
But after tonight, this has become a three-person race, and we will win the nomination.
Another night of voting in the books, with a long way to go before the nominations are secured. All right, so a chance to introduce our panel this morning, because we're going to knock this one around a little bit here. Former U.S. Representative Jason Altmaier is with us this morning, alongside Dr. Michael Bender from University of North Florida and JU's Rick Mullaney, director at the Public Policy Institute. So as we look at what happened here, Dr. Bender, I'm going to start with you. Any surprise Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton come out winners?
I don't think it was a surprise that either of them won. I think it was a little bit of a surprise if you would have asked us 4 weeks ago how close it was going to be, and then if you would have asked us going into yesterday, wow, it looked like Bernie really closed the gap, but she held on by a sizable margin of 5% or so.
Yeah, not very many people voting there when it comes down to the raw numbers in Nevada.
Caucuses are tough. They're an all-day event. It's Saturday. Things are going on. Easy, as opposed to just walking in and casting a ballot. It's much easier.
Yeah. Congressman, what do you think about this? Any surprises there, Trump and Clinton as the victors?
It wasn't a surprise after Nikki Haley's endorsement, Governor Haley, that Senator Rubio did so well. I think people were skeptical that Trump had the support. There was some feeling that maybe the late arrivers, the late deciders would go the other way, but he won by double digits. He's in very good position.
Yeah, Rick, that opening question to you, any surprises there on who came out #1 in each of these results?
Not really, but if you were to look back at June 15th when Jeb Bush announced his candidacy, and look back to June 16th when Donald Trump announced his, if you'd have said last night, 8 months later, Jeb Bush would be dropping out of the race and Donald Trump would win by 10 points, people would have thought you were crazy. So it was pretty stunning. In fact, Donald Trump's margin was about half of what it was projected to be, but you can't take anything away from a double-digit win. Hillary Clinton won by 5%, and she was up by 25 a couple months ago. But those who won were pretty much expected to win, maybe not by the margins that were anticipated.
So part of what we just said in kind of that wrap-up story I gave you there was Trump has won in the North and the South. How big of a difference does that make? Anybody?
I don't know that it matters a whole lot. I think the real issue for Trump is, can he get above 35%? That's where his polls...
Why is that an issue? I think I know.
Well, it's pretty clear that he has a pretty high floor as far as his support goes. They're very fervent, and they're not going to break from him. But can he bring in other people? Can he expand his base, so to speak? And it's not clear that he can get above that. I don't necessarily think he's a serious threat to win the nomination until he can start getting above 40% and maybe above 50% in either a poll or a state, any state. If he gets to that point, then it's really serious for him.
What do you think about that?
Everyone talks about the fact that, which is true, that Trump's support is capped. And the reason he's been so successful is there's been so many candidates in the race. They're taking votes away from each other, and Trump stays where he is. I think the opposite is true now for Senator Rubio. As long as Senator Cruz and Trump are still in the race, they're going to battle each other, and that's going to hurt Senator Rubio. So he's going to stay in it, but they have to decide on the other side who's the anti-establishment candidate, and at that point, Senator Rubio will be in very good position.
Well, so one of the things that, Rick, I was mentioning this before our show started. Last night, I had some teens in the room, we're watching results, and you start counting the numbers. If you look at the establishment on the Republican side, there's Trump and there's Cruz, and so in this case, Marco Rubio finishing the highest among those establishments. So Governor Bush is out, and there's his 8%. Is that going to go to Cruz or Trump, or more likely probably to Rubio, right?
I think more likely the money from Jeb Bush and the votes go to Marco Rubio. And let me say this. I think there's the pre-consolidation race and there's the post-consolidation race in the Republican Party.
Explain that.
And by that I mean, in Iowa, you had Chris Christie in, you had Jeb Bush in. At the end of New Hampshire, Christie was out. At the end of South Carolina, now Jeb Bush is out. Now the question is, how long does John Kasich stand around? Right now, Donald Trump is in the driver's seat, but it's the pre-consolidation race. Only 3 states out of 50. And so post-consolidation, meaning when you start to get somebody what they call the establishment lane, and you have 3 lanes, with Cruz more evangelical, far right, Donald Trump in more that populist lane, and then Marco Rubio, who can draw in a lot of different areas. What does that look like for the future? And I think that's important because everyone's looking in the rearview mirror. As you look to the future, what does that post-consolidation race look like? And if it narrows to a one-on-one, I agree with Michael. There does appear to be a very passionate core, but there's also a very passionate group against Donald Trump.
Yeah, so we want to talk some more. We're going to get to do that here. More from the campaign trail and more analysis from our panel is coming up. That includes the claim from Hillary Clinton's camp that just isn't true. We'll explain what that is, and I want to talk strategy with these gentlemen next on This Week in Jacksonville.
Our website is a great place to go to learn more about us, the results we've had. We have 24/7 live chat, answers to frequently asked questions. It's a good resource to go to.
Harrell and Harrell. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
Check out the kitchen, see what's missing. Make a list of all the provisions I need to feed this family of mine. Jump in the car and head one direction. Streets full of folks with the same intention. Folks like me like to keep their prices down. Prices are down, down, down.
Helping cut the cost of living.
And they're staying down.
It's your savings that we're giving.
See that big red hand for big savings not worth missing. All these down, down prices. Crazy if you miss them. Down, down, down. To low prices we're devoted. Savings devotees. This ain't some one-off promotion. With that big red hand, we're on a savings mission. All these down, down prices. Crazy if you miss them. Ooh.
Prices are down and staying down at Winn-Dixie.
This is Pastor R.J. Washington of the Titus Harvest Dome. Join us on Channel 4 every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. We're going to have a God time. Yes.
There's a lot to stop and see this President's Day at Nissan. Reinvented capability, enhanced safety, and reimagined design. 5 exciting new models. This is Nissan Now.
For a limited time, get up to $2,000 bonus cash on top of existing offers on select models. Get your new Nissan now. Shop your local Nissan store and choose Nissan.com.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. For almost 30 years, we've represented hundreds of thousands of people and have collected billions of dollars in settlements and verdicts for things that were wrongfully taken from our client, their health and loved ones, financial security and peace of mind, standing up for people, bringing those to justice who did them wrong. We fight bullies and rule breakers for a living. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
How important is breaking news to you?
I want to know what I need to do to keep myself and my family safe.
We have a crime and safety analyst that we turn to.
It's good to hear from somebody like that, so that way you know that it's an expert.
Channel 4 app, and I get those push notifications. I know when she's on lockdown before she even texts me.
That was something that I found out very quickly.
Y'all always on the cutting edge of everything. The breaking news, I love to watch it.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
And welcome back. In our panel, Rick Mullaney, Michael Linder, Jason Altmaier. So I wanted to talk about this because after that big loss in New Hampshire for Hillary Clinton, her campaign tried to lower expectations in Nevada. Several campaign representatives, including their spokesman, Brian Fallon, tried to kind of compare Nevada's population to the people in Iowa and New Hampshire, apparently trying to lower the expectations against Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Here's the quote from Brian Fallon. And there's an important Hispanic element to the Democratic caucus-goer universe in Nevada, but still, it's a state that is 80% white voters. So, why? Help me with the strategy there, because obviously, Secretary of State Clinton came out and won in Nevada.
Senator Sanders has proven to be much stronger a candidate than anyone expected, but I think the Clinton campaign has done a masterful job of spinning the media to talk about he really has a chance to win, and you really need to watch this race. Because without Senator Sanders in the race, which we're going to probably find out in a couple of weeks, all the attention's on the other side, talking about what we were talking about earlier, the Republican side of the campaign. So the Clinton campaign has gotten the media's interest up by talking about how viable Bernie Sanders is. And I think it's been interesting because everybody understands once they got out of Iowa and New Hampshire, it was going to be a totally different ballgame. And I think you're going to see Secretary Clinton get on a roll here where she starts piling up numbers, and at some point it's not going to be a race and people are going to stop talking about it.
So it's just the early returns, if you will, that say Bernie Sanders is a legitimate threat to
Yeah, it's to her benefit for it to be a close race now because it generates interest.
What do you think about that? Strategically, I guess, when you're saying, oh, we're the runners-up, we're going to struggle here.
I think there's 2 points. One is you want to set expectations low, so if you overperform expectations, the media talks about it, what a great night you had and what the trend and all that. But the point that you're talking about, yeah, absolutely. The fact that she's in a race is very valuable for her because we are talking about it, because we're discussing it, because people are paying attention to it. But on the flip side of that, you got to be careful. You don't want that to become too much of a race. You want a nice little challenge, you know, a little sparring session to loosen up, but you don't want to get caught with a left hook out of nowhere. Next thing you know, it's 2008 all over again.
You know, Rick, I had a long-time Democrat who served our country under President Clinton saying, you know, Democrats still wish somebody else had gotten in. Do you think there are still folks out there saying, I wish I had another choice?
Well, I do think there may be some candidates out there who maybe looked at this and said, maybe I should have gotten in. That may include Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren or others who've looked at this and Hillary Clinton hasn't been as formidable as they thought. But I go back to the point Michael made about be careful that you don't get a left hook. Bernie Sanders has been formidable and has pulled the campaign to the left. Now, I don't think anybody thinks that he can, realistically, that he can win the nomination for lots of reasons. Superdelegates, the map, the Clinton organization, and money. But he has been very effective in the debates. He's done very well in the town halls. And he has pulled her to the left, whether it's been on trade, whether it's been on Keystone Pipeline, whether it's been on guns, immigration. So he has had a very significant effect, I think, on the Democratic side. But I go to Jason's point. I don't think, realistically, most people think that he has a realistic chance at the nomination for lots and lots of reasons.
Congressman, Mr. Mullaney just brought up money there. That's something that I've been looking at even this morning because we understand Sanders spent twice as much as Hillary Clinton in Nevada. Clinton wins. We're looking at Governor Bush getting out of the race. He spent some $89 million on his campaign while the front runner, Donald Trump has spent less than $9 million. So 10 times as much spending by Bush, and he's out. How much is that a factor at this point?
It's interesting. A lot has been talked about and written about the impact of big money since the Citizens United decision. But as we've seen in the examples that you've given, especially with Governor Bush's campaign, if you spend a lot of money, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get the votes to go along with that. You have to spend it effectively, and you have to get results.
Yeah. You brought up Ted Cruz in our last segment there. Should he be disappointed about what happened in South Carolina? He was riding a lot of momentum, it seemed like.
He was, and he came in third, even though it was a narrow third. It's still a third. When they show the maps and they show Hillary Clinton in blue in Iowa, that she won that, it was very close, but it was a win. He's still in third, and that's disappointing for him. A lot of evangelical voters there, 3-1, and he only pulled 22% and came in third. That's disconcerting if I'm a Cruz supporter, thinking about, wow, all of a sudden I'm staring at the SEC primary in a week or so, and I'm not really doing as well as I'd hoped I would do or thought that I could do. And that's threatening for him.
So UNF and your public opinion research laboratory, you do polling. We see these polls out there on a daily basis almost in front of a primary or a caucus. We hear, oh, that candidate's up. Oh, that candidate's surging. How do you decide which poll really makes a difference, or do any of them make a difference? It just matters who votes.
I do sometimes look to the Real Clear Politics, and I look to their averages, but I look at for guidance and indications, not gospel, and they are not gospel, and you certainly saw that in Iowa. And in here, you saw that they were off a little bit, but they did predict the top three pretty well. I will say this, going back to the Ted Cruz being disappointed last night. Somebody who had a really big night this weekend, last night and this week, was Marco Rubio. It was really, really big for Marco Rubio. There was this narrative that he had been fatally wounded in New Hampshire. South Carolina suggests that is clearly not the case. He got the great endorsement from Nikki Haley in South Carolina. Jeb Bush dropped out, which is as big for Marco Rubio as it is for anybody. Many of those donors, a lot of those votes may be heading Marco Rubio's way. And so for him, this was, and he came in second place, which was unexpected, outperforming expectations. So this was a really big night for Marco Rubio.
Well, as you saw in some of these speeches, after results came in, we saw Marco Rubio start his speech with really respect and treasure the relationship with Governor Bush and so on. And then right after that, Ted Cruz comes out and says, I think their speechwriters might have been the same person, because they said almost the exact words. That's a fight for those votes for a candidate who's left the race, right?
Not only the votes, but also the money and the infrastructure support. Bush had great infrastructure, and Rubio has been questioned about his infrastructure, and if he can just basically take that over and stick his name on it, oh, that's a big win for Rubio, absolutely.
I do think it's important, by the way, for Rubio that John Kasich get out of the race sooner rather than later.
The Governor Kasich says, no, it's still a four-person race.
Oh, I know that, and that's problematic for the establishment lane, because as long as those two are in it, it's advantage Donald Trump, and some advantage to Ted Cruz. The map sets up very favorably, but with Nevada coming up, and also with the SEC primaries coming up on March 1st. But as long as we're still a little bit in that pre-consolidation, to get really post-consolidation, John Kasich or Marco Rubio, one of those two needs to get out of the race.
The biggest night for Rubio is going to be Florida, and you wouldn't think that. It's kind of implied with Cruz in Texas on Super Tuesday. He's going to win Texas. People who don't live here might say, well, Rubio's obviously going to win Florida. He may not. Trump is polling way ahead in Florida. I suspect Rubio will come and probably raise his numbers and win Florida. If he does not, if Trump takes the winner-take-all 99 delegates in Florida, that's probably going to end Rubio's campaign. But if he wins Florida, he gets those delegates. It's a totally different race.
Yeah, and so maybe 30 seconds each of you. Just as we wrap up, what's the most important thing going forward for this week, where we've got the Nevada caucus for Republicans Tuesday, and then Democrats do the primary in South Carolina?
Nevada changes the narrative depending on the order of finish. So if it's Trump, Rubio, Cruz, it's the same thing. But if Cruz jumps over Rubio, then you start hearing about how Cruz is now the second figure. Hillary Clinton's going to win. South Carolina big. I think that's just going to continue the snowball down the hill.
30 seconds, Rick Mullaney.
I don't think Nevada's going to have a big effect. But look to the following week, the 1 week later, when you get 12 states, about 600 delegates at stake for Super Tuesday. That's a big one. That map is pretty favorable for Ted Cruz, but a lot's going to happen between now and then, and you're going to try for that consolidation in the establishment lane.
Dr. Bender?
Yeah, absolutely. The longer Kasich stays in, the worse it is for Rubio. But that being said, I think Rubio is positioned well if he can stay in long enough, if he can garner up Bush's supporters and if he can start chipping away at some of Kasich's supporters.
Yeah. Isn't this interesting? I mean, all of this, like you mentioned, back in June, we didn't know necessarily we'd be talking about this. But thank you so much, Dr. Mike Binder, Jason Altmeyer, and Rick Mullaney. Appreciate your opinions this morning. And thanks to Rick Mullaney, we met Bob Graham this week. Our interview with Florida's 38th governor and a former U.S. senator is coming up next on This Week in Jacksonville.
Northeast Florida Scottish Games and Festival returns to the Clay County Fairgrounds Saturday, February the 27th. Tickets are $12 in advance and $15 at the gate. Children under 10 are admitted free. Tickets available online at neflgames.com.
I was driving in my Camry when I played the text.
When can I see you again?
I entered the location, 22 Beechwood Lane. The car rerouted me.
Turn left.
Told me where to go.
Turn right.
And I arrived 5.1 minutes later. Now, if only my car could tell me what to do next. Get a low 0% APR for 72 months on a new 2016 Toyota Camry. Toyota, let's go places.
Man, these wings look good.
Yeah, this spicy honey barbecue sauce is so good, it'll change your life.
Sir, it looks like we're leading in the polls.
You're running for president?
Don't answer that.
Life-changing? Maybe. Indescribably good? Definitely. The boneless wings meal with spicy honey barbecue sauce, served with crinkle fries and a small drink. Zaxby's. Indescribably good.
We can't save too much money because we are in debt. Working with somebody at the bank is different. I don't really know what they can help us with. We're hoping to get a little guidance with buying a house and also just what to do financially. The Insights by Regions helped me see how we can save and pay off our debt at the same time and why we would want to do that. I feel so much better knowing that everything's taken care of. I'm so ready to take our next step.
At Brakes for Less, all we do are brakes. And not just a two-wheel brake job, all four wheels for $139 on any car, truck, or SUV, foreign or domestic. All with a parts and labor guarantee. And we know your time is important, so we'll have you in and out fast. And remember, everyone wins Wednesday, when every job is 15% off. Brakes for Less, with 8 locations throughout Jacksonville, Orange Park, Jacks Beach, and St. Augustine.
I love Pollo Tropical. Like, I'm serious. Oh my goodness, the grilled shrimp.
It's a taste of the islands.
Pure paradise.
It's awesome.
It's really tasty, it's really juicy.
Oh, it's mouth-watering.
My favorite for the grilled shrimp is on top of a Tropi Chop. I'm salivating.
Shrimp Fest at Pollo Tropical. Grilled shrimp Tropi Chop with a drink for only $5.99.
And I have to top it off with my garlic cilantro sauce.
I got my fork out and I'm coming after it.
It just makes me want to cha-cha-cha.
Yeah, I eat a lot of pollo.
It's like you're walking into heaven.
Pollo Tropical. Life's better under the palm.
Fitness trackers, how these popular fitness gadgets can help the government record your every move.
Yes, absolutely. That information can be downloaded.
News 4 Jax investigates the dark side of your tracker. Monday on the 10 o'clock news.
Thanks for staying with us. A Harvard Law School graduate, a native Floridian, and a man who gives some credit to Jacksonville that he was even born. Those are some of the descriptions for the Honorable Bob Graham, the statesman appearing at Jacksonville University's Public Policy Institute this week and talking with us after his speech to students, faculty, and board members. Graham spoke about the need to educate everyday citizens about the civic process and about possibilities. Tell me your thoughts on the value of having a Public Policy Institute. Here in Jacksonville, there's also your public policy center there with the University of Florida. Why is that important in our state?
I think it's important, first, because we're graduating young people, people of all ages, who are going to go into various forms of public and private service, and I think uplift the community. Second, it brings people together to focus on issues that are going to be of importance to our common future. Water-related issues, for instance, or issues of public safety or transportation. That's what a public policy center focuses on.
Senator, what about that coming together thing? When we look at politics today, it seems like that's the missing element, that things are so partisan, so almost radical on either side of the aisle. That's not how you seem to operate.
And that's not how a public policy center operates. And I think that's one of the benefits to a government of such a center. You focus on the facts. You focus on those things that will contribute to achieving the common objectives of improved education or more accessible health care. The fact that people are dealing seriously with the same issue, with the same objectives, helps to keep the rancor and the dysfunction out of the process.
If you were 30 years younger, and this was the time of your life when you were diving into some of those high-level political offices, governor or senator, or a run for president, would you approach it the way you did back then, or have things changed now?
I think the climate that existed in the 60s and 70s and 80s when I was most active in politics was a different climate. People weren't as partisan. There wasn't as much time devoted to trying to demonize your opponent, rather to understand your opponent and hopefully convince them to the point of view that you thought was the right policy.
You mentioned a little bit at this visit with folks tonight some of the things you think are big concerns for the state of Florida. What are those things that concern you about the state?
How are we going to manage the second and third Florida that will probably come during the 21st century?
Because of population explosion?
Yes. I mean, we're now a little over 20 million. We will, without question, are going to be 35 to 40 million by the end of this century, and we could be 60 million by the end of this century. Are we preparing for that growth? Are we giving people the economic opportunities for a good job and giving them the preparation skills to be able to hold, keep, and grow in that job? Those are some of the policy issues that I think we're all going to have to deal with.
What's the thing that excites you most about Florida right now?
What it is the opportunity. We are still a relatively young state, although we are now the third largest state in the country. And so we've got much of our future still ahead of us.
This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. So next Sunday, live with you once again as we look for results from the Democratic primary in South Carolina. We'll also have a one-on-one conversation with Public Defender Matt Shirk. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air and online at news4jax.com. Have a great Sunday.
At News4Jax, we're always covering the news, even when we're not on TV. Stay informed on the go and online at news4jax.com.